Are you aware of the communication challenges to avoid in the workplace? Communication barriers can arise at any time in the workplace. Many of these barriers arise because of the speaker's assumptions, that we said exactly what we mean to, that everyone shares the same definition of key terms, or that all participants have enough background knowledge to put the message in context. That's a lot to assume. Today, we'll take the assuming out of workplace communication and break down the top challenges you'll face in the workplace. I'm Noel, and this is Jotform. Let's go. The goal of communication is to get as close as possible to 100% understanding among everyone involved. This requires the following four things to be in alignment: what the communicator means, what the communicator says, what the recipient hears, and how the recipient interprets the message. Let's get into a few strategies we can use to avoid various communication challenges in the workplace. Assumptions interfere with clear communication by concealing the gaps in understanding. Next time you're participating in a conference call or having a one-on-one conversation, pause every now and then and ask your audience what they're taking away from your statements. If you're not all on the same page, take that as an opportunity to try again and get everyone up to speed before moving on. It's also a great idea when writing an email to include questions and ask for a response to check for understanding. Here are a few tips to keep in mind when addressing a group. First up, don't assume that your message is clear to everyone. What is clear to you may be confusing to others. If you tell your team, "We need more participation in the next meeting," does that mean every employee should prepare a detailed report? Or just that too many employees were staring at their phones? This is when making the implicit explicit can help. Be clear and quantifiable. This note is very important when discussing needs or expectations. This advice carries into your writing skills as well. Poor writing creates confusion, frustration, miscommunication, and decreased productivity. Instead, use clear language and complete, well-connected thoughts to improve your writing. You can certainly improve the clarity of your messages, whether written or spoken, by simplifying language and connecting your ideas carefully. However, there's no substitute for drawing listeners into the conversation. Try asking them if you're making sense, or if they can paraphrase the message back to you. Next up on our list of communication tips is, don't assume the listener has all the background info they need. Information has context, surrounding circumstances, or facts that shed light on its meaning. Too often we set our listeners up for failure by assuming that they know what we know and can contextualize our messages in the same way we do. Think about it this way. You're the center of your information. It's crystal clear in your own mind, but no one else has all the same background, context, or history that you do. This makes it difficult for your listeners to frame things the same way you do, creating misunderstanding. Instead, when it comes to context, err on the side of over-explaining. When writing, you can always place the background info beneath the main message. When speaking, you have the luxury of asking questions right then to make sure there are no missing links. Last, don't assume anyone can handle yet another message. In today's society, we're constantly under a barrage of information overload. A coworker may receive your message and even understand it, only to forget about it because of the deluge of data in the modern workplace. A great tip to remember is to make your message stick out from the crowd. Connect your message to the team's broader goals. Tell your reader how your message impacts their day-to-day work life and why your message is important. Follow up with reminders. Sometimes nudging a topic back to the top of the reader's mind doesn't hurt. It's not only up to speakers and writers to carry all the weight of good communication. Message recipients also need to put in some work to improve understanding. This is where effective listening comes in. Avoid interrupting the speaker. Ask questions when the speaker pauses, and stick to the speaker's choice of subjects. Don't be a passive listener. The same goes for email readers. Try your best to understand each paragraph before proceeding to the next, then come back with questions about anything that's unclear. Employees on all sides of the communication table must help to create a safe space for all participants. With the rise of intercultural communication in the global market, a great diversity of experiences and opinions is available. For a company to benefit from this richness of perspective, its employees and partners have to feel safe enough to participate. People who feel they'll be challenged often keep their ideas to themselves, to the detriment of the business as a whole. If you're not sure whether or not your employees feel comfortable participating in workplace discussions, ask. Use an anonymous employee feedback form from Jotform to make checking in with staff easy. Questions knock down the barriers that can pop up in workplace communication. The best cure for poor communication is more communication. And that responsibility falls on both the speakers and the listeners to work at truly understanding each other. Let's do a quick recap. When it comes to speakers and writers, there are a few ways to avoid communication challenges. Don't assume that your message is clear to everyone. Don't assume that the listener has all the background info they need. And don't assume that anyone can handle yet another message. When it comes to readers and listeners, be an effective listener. Take your time to understand the information you're being given and make sure to ask questions when you don't. Creating an inclusive and understanding work environment will knock down many communication barriers you face. Now that you know what barriers to look out for, stick around and we'll go over some concrete steps we can take to remove communication challenges altogether. Thanks for watching Jotform. I'm Noel. I'll see you next time.